This lithium battery connected to a JK inverter BMS is about to overheat. The system alarm will activate and I'm going to get a notification on my phone almost immediately. And you won't believe how simple it was to do. So let me show you how. So after doing some testing with the JK inverter BMS and seeing that it doesn't really correctly report any alarms to the inverter, or it doesn't itself give you any meaningful warning or alarm if something goes wrong, I thought I need to try and come up with something that is simple, cheap, preferably uses off-the-shelf parts, that's got its own power supply, it requires no coding, and if it requires any modifications, it needs to be somewhat DIY friendly. So really not a tall order of needs or requirements at all. Of course, I'm joking there. That's quite a lot of requirements that we need to meet. And luckily enough, I was able to rig up something that works now. This almost didn't work. I ran into a little bit of a hiccup, but managed to overcome that. You guys will see that shortly. And it has been working for a couple of days now already. So I thought I would show you guys what it is. So let's take a step back in time and I'll show you exactly what I did. So I picked up one of these Sonoff DW2 Dawn window sensors. This is the Wi-Fi version so that it can connect directly to our local network at home over Wi-Fi without needing any other funny devices. And the way this thing works is that you add it to the eWeLink app and it's then able to send you a push notification to the app whenever a window or a door is opened. And by the way, if I can find links to the stuff I'm using, I'll definitely leave those in the description if you guys are interested. So before modifying this little device, I went ahead and paired it with the app, gave it a name, BMS System Alarm, and tested the functionality. And you can see when the magnet is separated from the sensor, a notification comes through. And again, when the magnet is brought back to the sensor, another notification is sent through. So with all of this working, it's time for some modifications. So I'm guessing that because this side is a magnet, there's going to be a small reed switch inside here on the circuit board. And hopefully we can access that reed switch and then sort of gain access to either side of it, to the contacts. And we're going to tap into either side of that and then connect it to the relay, one of the dry contacts on the BMS. And then hopefully the dry contact can trigger that little reed switch instead of having this magnet trigger the reed switch. So let's see if we can get into this thing. Yes, no, I can't even open it now again. Come on, man. There we go. Let's see if we can get into the back of it and get access to the little circuit board. So it just runs on 2 AAA batteries. Supposedly it's got a couple of months service life with the door opening and closing, or the switch opening and closing, I don't know, something like 3 times a day, and then they claim 3 or 4 months service life. Technically, this thing should not be opening and closing. It's just going to be in standby and really only activate if something goes wrong. So hoping to get a little bit more battery life out of it, but if we don't, I do have a little buck converter. Oh, it's somewhere here. There we go. A little buck converter from probably 12 volts down to 3 volts, and we'll connect it up into this if, of course, we get this whole lot working. But it looks like it is pretty tightly packed in here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little clip over there and a little clip over there. I think if we can get that out without damaging the board. There we go. Oh, brilliant. Oh, okay. Can already see a little bit of a problem. So I thought there was going to be a reed switch over there, and it turns out that is not a reed switch. So the magnet normally goes up against that little component there, and when you pull it away, then of course it activates, drives the little circuit, sends you a notification. Let me just go and have a little bit of research quickly, have a quick close look at what this component is, and then get back to you guys. I think it's actually just going to be a little sort of electronic magnetic switch, but let me just check it out. Okay, so we almost had a spanner in the works here. I was, as I said, expecting a glass reed switch over here so that we could easily access either side of the reed switch and connect it to our dry contact, and then we trigger the unit this way. Turns out that this little component here, 6131, is an AMR sensor, or basically a little magnetic sensor. It does the same thing as a reed switch. It's got 3 little pins. This one over here, it's got 1, 2, and 3. So this first little pin over here is a VCC pin, then it's got a ground pin up there, and then an output pin over here. So when we've got our magnet in this position or very close here, this output is connected to ground, or the ground is driven, our output is driven down to ground. And when we pull if we take the magnet and we pull it away, then our voltage here, which is 3 volts, I've measured it, or the VCC in, the output is driven to VCC, or VCC is driven to the output. So it turns out that luckily in this case, this is what I think is going to happen, but we can take our dry contact and connect one of the legs of that relay onto this pin, the VCC pin, and the other leg of the relay onto our output pin. And then when the alarm triggers on the BMS, it'll connect these 2 pins together. It'll connect this one to this one, and then it should trigger this whole device and send us a notification. At least in theory, that's how I think it's going to work. Let's solder it up and see if it actually does. Okay, so there it is. It's not super pretty, but I think it will work. You know, this is just for testing at the moment, so I think that'll be just fine. I might revisit it at a later stage, maybe just do a bit of a better solder job if I make this more of a permanent solution. If this does work, I'll also end up making a second board for the second battery, but I think for testing, for now, this is just fine. Okay, so I think it's time for a little bit of testing. Now, I'm not going to put this back into the case just yet, because if something has gone wrong or doesn't work, you know, a little bit easier to try and fix it. But we'll pop the batteries in and test it with the magnet. Just going to give it a quick second to, you know, start up and connect to the Wi-Fi. It should happen pretty quickly. Cool. Let's give it a try. So taking our magnet, putting it up against the, there we go. We can actually see BMS system alarm. And then if I take the magnet away, we should get another, there we go, there's our second one. So the little unit is still working. Now I'll just clear those 2 notifications. And as I mentioned earlier, what I'm going to do here is just onto our negative leg. Now, which is the negative leg here? Which is the common side? Okay, so our negative side is this side. Where can I clip it on? Okay, I'm going to clip that on there. And as I mentioned earlier, that one of the output leg is driven to ground, or it's driven to VCC. So under normal conditions, we can just put the magnet back on there. So this is, you know, as it would normally be. Now, on the VCC side, I did sort of solder it to one of the wires here that's got the trace on it. So this has got the trace on it. So if I go ahead and take our multimeter now, there we go, we've got our multimeter there, and the one with the trace, this is the VCC in. We should get 3 volts. And then on the output leg of that little component with the magnet here, if we put it on there, we can see we get 0 volts. So it's driving that output leg to ground. And if I remove the magnet now, there we go. All it does is it drives that output leg up to 3 volts. So that's what I was trying to explain earlier by saying that all we need to do now, instead of having this little magnet trigger that little sensor, all that we need to do is basically short these 2 wires out, and we can do that. I don't know if you can, yeah, there we go. We can short those two wires out, and then we should get a notification on our phone. And we get nothing. Oh yeah, sorry. My bad. The magnet does have to be on the unit. So if we put the magnet up there to the unit, okay, there's our 3 notifications. We can clear all of those. There we go. Got a little bit worried there for a second. So now what will happen is if we short these 2, so if we had to go and connect these 2 to the dry contact on our BMS, we'll do that shortly. And that dry contact closes. That's what we're going to simulate here. So I'll connect the 2 wires up. There we go. We get our notification. So that's basically how this little sort of workaround jerry rig little window door sensor is going to work. So just before I put everything back into the little case here, I ended up using a little bit of hot glue and just gluing the wire onto the bottom of the board here, just to give this little bit of a solder joint a little bit of support. Of course, I bent it over the board, and then I ended up drilling a 3mm hole in the bottom of our case. Got the wire through, and let's see if we can get this whole lot clipped in. Now, it's going to be a little bit fiddly, and I don't know if you're going to exactly be able to see what's happening, but nevertheless, we'll give it a go. Okay, so that looks like it is in on the one side. Remember, you got these two little clips here that you've got to clip in. So, oh, there we go. In on one side, and one side to go. Wait, hang on. I think I'm going to have to clip. Yeah, we need to clip this little guy in here. There we go. And then this little bit of wire, I've just noticed that now, we're going to need to clip it down underneath these little battery support things here. There we go, it's done on one side. There we go. So there we go, you can see we've got our internals back into the case, and the little wire kind of goes around the side there, and then out the bottom. So hopefully this all still works. As I said before, it is a little bit fiddly. And let's pop our batteries in. And I'm going to be a bit optimistic here, and I'm going to close up the case. So hopefully that is all connected up now. This is going to go into the dry relay on the front of the BMS, and when that relay closes, when there's a system alarm, these two wires will be connected, and there we go. We get our notification. So for testing, I'm just going to lay the box loose here on that bit of trunking, and of course we'll plug it into our battery. Maybe at a later stage, if it is working after testing, I'll stick it to the side of the battery box, but we'll see how that goes. So we've got it plugged in, and it's powered up, and it actually should be working now at the moment. So the phone on the left side is my normal daily use phone, and the phone on the right is showing the BMS app, and that is connected to the master BMS and to the battery that you're currently looking at. I also have the DRY ARM trigger, or number 1 relay, set to close when a BMS system alarm is triggered, and we also saw this in a previous video. So watch the battery temperature probe T1. As I put the probe into a glass of hot water, the temperature rises and will shortly exceed the limit, and the over temperature alarm will trigger. And almost instantly, the notification comes through on my phone. So no matter where I am, I should get a warning message if something goes wrong. And as soon as the problem goes away, the BMS system alarm turns off and I get another notification. And there we go, the problem is fixed, and the alarm turns off and the notification comes through, and the BMS system alarm door message appears. Now of course, I need to keep this in mind that the door open message means that something has gone wrong in the BMS, and when I receive the door closed message, that the alarm has turned off. Either way, I'm not really expecting to receive very many of these messages, so whenever I do receive one of these notifications, being at the door closed or the door open message, it means that potentially something is up and I should go to the BMS, log into the app and check what is actually happening. Maybe this goes without saying, but if it doesn't, also if you've got multiple batteries, you need one of these little devices for every single BMS, because when something goes wrong with a single battery or a single BMS, then that single BMS will send you a notification. Also something to note here, and let me be very clear about this. This is no way to work with or connect up sensitive electronics. This was just some late night slap together quick sticks fun little experiment project that I thought I would play around with to see if I could get it working. You can't exactly be connecting or shorting out pins of any random component and expecting nothing bad to happen. So of course, if you guys do end up trying this, you're doing so at your own risk. So that said, it has been successfully working for a few days already, and I have connected the sensor in the alarm state or with the relay contacts closed for many hours, and nothing has burnt out yet. So far, so good. If you guys are going to do this and you are still a little bit worried about it, you could always go into the BMS app onto the control page. This is only really if you've got some of the latest firmware. I think it was from 15.11 onwards. You could go onto the control page and then you scroll down right to the bottom, and then there's a setting called DRY ARM Intermittent. If you enable that setting, then as soon as there is a BMS alarm, the dry contact or your relay contacts close, and they only stay closed for 1 minute. It doesn't matter if the alarm is still going off for 24 hours. If that setting is enabled, then the contacts will only stay closed for 1 minute, and after that, then the contacts will open again. So that's something that you guys could do if you wanted to. If you guys are interested in seeing more testing of this inverter or this JK inverter BMS, you can go check out this video right here. If you are enjoying the content so far, please give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Cheers.